Welcome to the Intimate Details with Dr. Tiff podcast. My guest today is someone I've known for several years. She has just pointed out 7, and I've had the pleasure of watching her career evolve and blossom in ways that defy logic or explanation. Don't get me wrong, Georgia Dawkins is a legit force to be reckoned with. And if you've ever had the pleasure of working with her, you know that she is one of the best television producers in the business. She's worked within a multitude of television genres, including local and network news, talk, reality, and entertainment, and is hereby and forever known as the Purpose Producer. In addition to being an amazing producer, she's a journalist, she's an author, she's a content creator, a comedian, which we're going to talk about, and most importantly, I get to call her a friend. Welcome, Georgia Dawkins, to the podcast.
Dr. Tiff, you're so sweet. I can't even believe you remember little old me.
Of course. How can I forget?
Congratulations on the show, too.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been something that I've fought for years and years and years. And as we'll probably talk about today, and as listeners will hear, like I've gone through a bit of an evolution myself, and I'm here. She's here.
Not the deep
I know.
side.
I know. Down in my spirit, down in my bones, the ancestors just came up and said, "Girl, do this podcast. Do it." So we're doing it, and I cannot believe that we are here, that you are here, and I'm so thankful to you for coming on the show. And as someone who isn't afraid to pivot myself, like I'm always in awe of your career and just love to see all of the wonderful things that you've done with it, because in being in, I think, this space of media, it can be so many different things. And I just wonder if this is what you envisioned for yourself when you started out.
Child, absolutely not. Okay. When I tell you all I wanted to be, all I wanted to be was Oprah. That's when I was 12. And I was like,
Amen.
I want to be a journalist. I want to interview the celebrities. Amen. I want to be at all the events. And then I got to journalism school and I did that first internship. And I say, oh, they need producers. I said, they need producers. And honestly, it's because, it's not, at that time, there weren't a lot of Black producers. Not a lot of Black people in management. And that's what really matters, as you know, in development and networks. There are not a lot of Black faces. So I did not see myself getting into entertainment at this time. I thought by 30, 35, I'd be an executive producer in news somewhere. But I've been able to do so much more in different genres. And it's not at all what I pictured. It's better.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm glad that you said that, because I think that we all go into a particular field, or we think we're going into a field, and we have this kind of linear view of what it's going to be. Like, if I go to school and then I take this internship and then I get hired at this place, then this is going to be my career. And this is, and even I think when we have people that ask us, how did you get to where you are? Their expectation is kind of this linear answer. And it's not like that at all.
Not at all. I mean, we just have to be open to the dream and the purpose evolving, because it doesn't always look like that first journal entry when we thought we heard God clearly. I'm going to write this down. That was good. That was good. This going to preach in 10 years. Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell people what it is, in your own words, what you do. If you're trapped, held hostage on a plane next to somebody who wants to talk when you want to sleep, and they say, what do you do? What do you do?
I don't talk to those people, honestly, because I do. I would also like to sleep, or just knock me out before you take me. But people, people are always trying to pitch shows to me. So there's that.
Yes.
I develop content. You can give me an idea or like a concept, and I will create a whole personality around that. I'll create a strategy, a digital strategy. I'll create a program strategy, which means I'll look at, what the title of the show should be, or can be, because you never know. We got to test that. Yeah. Also segments, talent. That's my favorite thing to do, is talent development. And that's a program where I help ready people who are already professionals, experts in their professions, but they want to be experts on TV. So I help them get to that point. For a lot of people, I help them book their first national interview. As you know, when I was a producer, I'm still a producer, but you know, in different shows that I was on. So I develop content, I develop talent. I also help you produce the production of that. So who should edit, you know, what does editing cost? People don't even think about the post-production of it all.
No.
So post-production.
And post is where it's at, man. That can make or break. You can have the greatest show ever, but mess it all up in edit.
With some ugly graphics. I mean, why? And so, and then there's distribution. So from content development to talent development to production to distribution, I show you how to use the content and what you already have to book interviews, to get to spread your message to more platforms.
Yeah.
And in a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
And I might make you laugh along the way. I'll tell you
I think you will. You know, you're one of those people who is naturally funny. And I don't know when you realized that. I realized that early on. You reminded me that we've known each other for 7 years, which we're going to talk about. But I don't know that this side of you was necessarily one that I don't know if you claimed it or what it was, but like I've always found you to be this delightful human being with a very witty sense of humor. But you, over the last, I think maybe 2-3 years, your career as an outwardly funny person, as a
funny on the outside,
on the stage, claiming this newfound freedom of yours to just be funny as you are. It's been amazing to watch. It's been really a joy to watch too.
Man, I'm terrified. And I'm having the time of my life. Like,
let me tell you something, Georgia. And this is why, this is one thing that I love about, cause I think a lot of little Black girls, we went on, we were at home, latchkey kids, saw Oprah in the afternoon. And that was kind of where we got that vision, like, ooh, I want to be her. Right. Or I want to do something like her, or I want to be, you know, in that space, feel those feels.
You know, for a lot of us, Oprah was the first time that we were introduced to media power.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Media historically and still today has been run, owned, and operated by white men. And so for Oprah to take up any amount of space in this industry gave us all hope. Now, also shout out to Bob Johnson of BET.
Yes.
Who is credited with making in the sale of BET, creating the most Black millionaires at one time. So think about all the other people who were invested along the way. There's something about media power. There's something about, you know, the reason that these political organizations feed their messages to certain platforms, because they know the power of media. Yeah. Now we are learning the power of media. And you have your own podcast and I have my own podcast, and we're all just taking up space because Black people are not a monolith, and we deserve media power too.
Right. And we deserve to be in this space. We definitely deserve to be in this space. You know, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about kind of how you got to where you are. We can talk, you know, very surface level about the job that you do or the work that you've done, but I want to get to know Georgia. Where'd you grow up?
Oh, I'm from a small town in Florida, population 10,000, 16% Black. It's called Sebring, okay? South of Orlando. You probably drove through it on the highway, all right? It's about 80 miles from Disney World, but yeah, I'm from a small town.
Okay. And what was your family life like? Like, who all was in the home?
Okay, so I had definitely my mom. So shout out to her. She calls herself the producer of the Purpose Producer. That is her. That's her title.
It. And Mama is fly. Like I've seen Mama so working fun. It she on really the gram, and I know where you get it from, honey, because she's something else. She fire.
I don't know if I get it from her, she's getting it from me, or we getting it from each other. Because I cut my hair, and Mama did the same thing immediately, and she said, "Show him the picture that you showed your barber to get the haircut." So there was my mom.
And here she go.
My older brother, and younger brother. Then when I was 17, she added another brother.
Okay.
And we're very much spread out, but there are 3 boys and me being the only girl. And also my dad, my extended family. I have a total of 12 brothers and sisters. or 11 when you put everybody together. So it was very much a blended family. But also I grew up in a town with a lot of my aunties and my cousins and
the village.
A lot of family. Yeah. And my church. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what was your role in the family? Some people feel like they were the nurturer, the caretaker, the leader, the baby.
I raised everybody. These are all my kids. These are all my kids. My mama called me mama. Okay.
Wow.
And that's no shade. I love her. But no, I definitely was 8 years old trying to bake cookies, definitely making dinner for the family. I think spaghetti might have been the first thing that I mastered. But I was kind of that second parent, because a lot of times when you grow up with a single parent, the oldest or the second oldest or the girl becomes the other parent. So I was dropping my brother off at daycare and then going to school or practice or after school job, or picking my other brother up from practice, dropping my mama off at work because we got one car, so I was a boss.
Yeah. Early on.
Telling everybody what to do. My brother says, you've always told people what to do. You love telling people what to do. I'm so glad you finally get paid for it.
I know that's right. It's nice to get a check, especially for what you do naturally. Did you ever, growing up, did you ever feel like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish I didn't have to be the adult in this situation? I wish I could be the child.
I wish I didn't have to be the adult today, if we being honest. I wish I could. I was telling my best friend last week, she was visiting Atlanta, and I was like, man, sometimes I miss high school. And she was like, what? And I was like, I just didn't have bills. And I didn't, have rent in Atlanta and all the things that come with that. But
adulting is some BS, man.
I think growing up, I didn't know that I was missing out on a childhood, because a lot of very traumatic things happen. And I don't feel like I had much of a childhood. Like when I look at my nieces now, I'm like so envious of them. Oh my gosh, they just get to live and they just get to be, and they're so confident. And I'm like, I didn't have that. If you look at a lot of pictures of me growing up between, I think 6 and 13 or 14, I was always pouting in the back. There'd be a family picture, everybody's smiling, they're happy to be there. And I'm in the back scowling.
And what was the scowl about though? What were you upset about, or just unhappy about, or just, was it just, I had to do all this work to get y'all together for this photo, and y'all over here cheesing and haven't done anything? What was it about?
Who really knows on that day? But I now know that I've been battling depression and anxiety for a long time, and PTSD as well. So there were things that were happening at that time that I was processing on my face, because I didn't have the words for what I was going through. It wasn't until I started therapy. I started therapy in college, actually. Girl, I don't know who I'd be if I couldn't tell somebody else my problems real quick. If I couldn't just shoot a text over or just sit down and release and process and get the things out of my head.
Yeah.
I don't know who I'd be, but therapy has definitely helped me unpack a lot of these things. Like you asked about being a comedian. I didn't accept that I was a comedian until last week when my therapist told me it was okay. She said, you're a producer and a comedian. I said, can I write that down? Because I do, but I don't. There was an identity struggle there.
Okay. And so, I want to get to the evolution of Georgia, the comedian, but what did you think you were doing on that stage, friend?
The things that I did in the newsroom, the things I did in the boardroom, editorial meetings. Yeah, where I actually had a boss tell me you should do comedy, because I would always how you maybe read the headlines for my journalists out there. We go through the headlines in the morning. I would always make a joke around them. So I was already writing, monologues for the morning meeting, and that's inappropriate. That's not what they wanted. So I had to find an outlet.
So, how did you get there? How did you get from, or let's talk about, let me go back. Let's talk about how you got to this place of being a producer. You mentioned going to FAMU for undergrad. And was your intent to study journalism?
Hell yeah.
When you went in?
Hell yeah. My best friend's still mad at me because I ain't go to Spelman. She graduated a year before me because she's a little bit older. And the pact was to go to Spelman together. I didn't understand math at the time, and that out-of-state tuition was much more expensive, but also they didn't have journalism at the time. They do now, but they didn't have broadcast journalism, and FAMU did. And also my uncle, rest in peace, he inspired me to be a journalist. I would go through the family albums and I'd see him interviewing Cedric the Entertainer and these basketball players. He's courtside. And I'm like, wow, this guy who's now a professor, he was a professor at the time, has lived a life and he's told some stories and he's met some people. And I was so inspired by that. I knew at the age of 12 that I wanted to be a journalist and that I wanted to go to FAMU. So FAMU was the only school I applied to. I studied broadcast journalism, minored in psychology, which didn't help me at all. That didn't help me at all. I should have just kept it with the theater. Okay. I should have stayed in theater. But no, journalism, absolutely my first love.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're so good at it. And I say that you're good at it, knowing that you've been able to, we rattled off some of the different genres of television that you've worked in, whether it's been local news or network news or reality or talk, entertainment. Like, you've been able to take your skills as a journalist and just really pivot and do different types of shows. So many folks in television tend to do like the one thing. If I'm a news person, if I'm a news journalist, then I'm just going to stick with news. And you've been able to just really look at whether it's news or just what's happening, pop culture, or whatever it is, and just put it into a different package, and it's still got that Georgia flavor to it.
Man, people call it pivoting. I call it spinning in circles. Okay. Yes. It's been a big old circle, but that was the struggle. Is I'm this award-winning journalist, all these fellowships, and I started in New York and Good Morning America, and that's a hell of a place to start when you first graduate.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
yeah, it is.
Actually,
it is.
I started at Good Morning America before I graduated. So there was already this expectation set that you're going to be the one, or you're gonna, and that's what I started to carry, is I have to now stay in journalism. I have to be representation. I have to speak up for my people.
That's a lot.
It's Georgia. A lot of pressure. Yeah. And so as I started to release that, I started to uncover the things that really brought me joy. And it's first and foremost storytelling. And now I do that in different genres and different platforms, but it's the same set of skills. So that does make it easy to pivot.
I'm glad that you brought up therapy before, because I feel like, so many of our people don't necessarily utilize that resource as a way to get off of us what it is we're carrying. You mentioned also that, some very traumatic things happened to you when you were younger, and those were things that you were carrying as well. But when you say that, getting a big job, like the job at Good Morning America that you got before you even graduated, and that being an additional weight, like, that you have to do something with, like, nobody gets that opportunity, right? And so then there's the weight of, well, since I am the one who gets this opportunity, I'm the one that, has to carry this load. I can't let a whole bunch of people down, people that I don't know, people that don't even know me, but I feel like I'm carrying this weight. How did you process that mentally and be well?
I don't know. I'm going to write another book. I do want to, first and foremost, I would love to thank everybody who has been following me for 15, 20 years on social media, because no matter what industry or genre I went to, they have been loyal. They have been supportive every step of the way. They bought this book. They came to see me in community theater. That was a phase. They've been there with me. But when you ask, how did I do that and be well? I wasn't well most of the time. I wasn't. I just did it, and I just got up and tried one day at a time, even when those days seemed like they didn't end. I was like, is this the same day? This is the same day that I was mad about yesterday? I don't really know. But honestly, just creating the language around it. And that's what therapy's helped me do, is create that language. And I believe in the power of therapy so much so that I gift it to my friends, especially the ones where I'm at capacity with my advice. Yes. And I can't give you nothing else. It's probably not healthy. It's probably not healthy for me to say nothing else. So why don't you go see this lady? It's already taken care of. So I have several friends who are still in therapy and started therapy because I invested in their mental health.
Amen. And praise God to you, because so many more of us need to be on somebody's couch.
Oh yes. I can't wait to get back to the couch. I've still been in virtual therapy and you know, my friends know what therapy means to me and means to my career. I would not be able to take these jobs and do them well and be well. And because you get lost sometimes.
Yeah.
I've gotten
like
lost.
You said,
so
you don't even know what day
titles,
it is sometimes. You don't know what day titles, it is.
Getting lost in the show, getting lost in the network, getting lost in the what's next. Already, I'd be so far in the future, man. The Jetsons. I've been here, bro. Yeah. I've been here thanks to anxiety. I have been out here planning and plotting, but I'm child.
What was your breaking point then? What was your breaking point in your career where you just had to say like, oh, I can't be well unless I take this portion of my mental health more seriously?
All right. I ain't gonna say the name of the show, but I did leave a show that I helped create and develop. And that was my breaking point. That was my breaking point because I was so in love with the show. I was so in love with what we were doing and the momentum that we were building at that time, but I was not well. I was not well. And I was giving.
How did you recognize that, Georgia?
I was having panic attacks. I was literally having nightmares at night and then and panic attacks during the day. That is no peace. That is unhealthy. And I didn't have the language for it at the time. And I wrote about it in my book as this, spiritual awakening that I was having. And I now know that you can have a spiritual awakening and a psychotic break at the same time. So
two things can happen at the same time.
That was my breaking point. It was after I recognized that I can do more. I can do more with my gifts than what I'm doing now. And I can be appreciated for these gifts more so than where I am now. It was after that I went off and wrote a whole ass book. Can I cuss you? I wrote a whole book in eight days and published in 90. And that was my biggest claim to fame. I finally owned something and it's my story. And I put it out there first. And that's honestly where the journey began. I thought that the breaking point was the beginning and the end of the journey, but it was only the beginning.
Yeah. And that's so amazing because I remember that time in your life. I remember a conversation I believe we had in a parking lot. And I remember just the dichotomy, just this juxtaposition that you were in, like, this is something that I birthed, that I created, and it is killing me. It is killing me. And if I don't take hold, and I there is a part of us, I think, always that wants to walk away from something, but because of what we've invested in it, we feel tethered to it, that we can't walk away, that we can't give up on it, that we can't let it go. And it can sometimes like break us and beat us up and pummel us down if we don't just let go. And that's where the freedom is. The freedom is in letting go and watching this thing do what it was meant to do, but also understanding that I am not meant to do this beyond this point. What was it that you learned in therapy that made that clear for you? That like you, this place no longer serves you.
I don't even think it was in therapy because I had to call my therapist and tell her, look, girl, I done had a panic attack and I'm shaking in the hallway. Can you get me in today? And that panic attack happened at work. And that was like extremely embarrassing. And so it was in therapy, having my therapist giving me permission to not be okay, giving me permission to acknowledge what I had done and also what was done to me. It was a very unsafe environment for me mentally. It was like navigating these landmines, not knowing what was going to be the thing, because while there was a battle going on in my mind, there was also people plotting against me and around me. And that is the devil. Okay. And so it was definitely just having a voice, having a safe place.
Yeah. Well, I'm so thankful that you were able to come to that realization and move on, because without that, we wouldn't have had some of the other amazing things, including your book, that you've been able to really put out. And I don't know if that part of your life would have bred Georgia the comedian, you know?
Yeah.
So tell me how this pivot to comedy happened for you.
Well, I'd say it started in the book. It was, my readers, and I'm grateful for every single person who bought a book, because I didn't know what I was capable of until I did it. And the fact that people even bought it is just amazing. But comedy started in 7th grade, but that's fine. That's when I told the teacher to leave her husband. But it continued.
Okay. Stop.
Intimate details with Dr. Tiff.
Let's go back. Okay. 7th grade class. Do you raise your hand and volunteer this information?
No, it was a 4-page letter. It was a 4-page letter. I told my best friend to slide it to her. She wasn't my teacher. So I was like, look, she can't know it's from me. All right. So you just go slide this to her during the cafeteria. I know. It's crazy. And my friend at the time, she walks up, she has the letter, and she's like 3 feet away from the teacher. And she turns around and she looks at me and she was like, give it to her now. And I was like, you? Yeah. Now she knows that the anonymous 4-page letter is from me. Okay. They called my mama. And that was really the first time I was outed in school, because I didn't really know I was that gay at the time. But a 4-page letter telling a teacher to leave her husband and that you'll take care of her and her 2 kids is delusional. She wasn't even my teacher, but yeah, that's where comedy started.
So many questions. Okay. Because not only, so you first say this to me, right? And I'm thinking, oh, she knows, Georgia knows that her husband is out cheating on her or something. And she's telling her, like, leave her husband. Oh, you wanted her for yourself.
Yeah. I just thought I could help.
Oh, and what would you have done?
I don't know.
7th grade?
I don't know, because I didn't know anything about being gay in 7th grade.
And didn't know anything about paying a bill either. I want to go back to
not nan bill. Don't know what I would have done. Oh my gosh, it would have been a Lifetime movie for sure, or a BET original,
hands down.
Because I've never seen a movie like that before,
hands down.
But that's where it started. Writing stories that really happened to me, in the book, and having people say I went from laughing to crying, and that was just like,
yes.
It must have been cathartic for you. And I was like, yeah, yes. Actually it was. Yeah. But I was like, okay, I can take stories from the book because it's my truth and I can start to write around them. And that's where I started with the open mics. And I just walked in to an open mic in 2020 because I thought it was the end of the world. And I was like, if I don't do it now, then I might not get another chance. And it was still the height of the pandemic. So I walk into a bar in Midtown and I just did it. I just started, and I didn't know anything about writing. I just started collecting things in my little notebook on my phone. And I tried some of that and I actually got some laughs. And what that moment let me know is I want to be a better writer. It's always been about being a better writer. So whether that was journalism or, publishing the book or the podcast, I always want to be a better writer. And so at the time, I just met my girlfriend, and turns out she was also a comedian. She just started comedy a few months before I did, and she introduced me to this writing class where I would meet with other comedians from around the country, and we come together with our material and workshop it. And so that's where I started with the writing, and then I got back on stage, and I haven't stopped since.
Wow. And it's interesting that you said you just needed to be a better writer, because I oftentimes feel like, Georgia entering into FAMU would have never like really pictured this Georgia here today. But the things that you learned at FAM and the things that have been instilled ever since really have prepared you to be exactly where you are right now.
Yeah.
And you would have always ended up here because that's where you were supposed to be anyway.
Well, praise God for that. But definitely what I do now, when I'm on stage, it's for the Georgia who was the latchkey kid who had to come home and take the meat out the freezer and make sure she vacuumed and washed out the windowsills and washed them baseboards. The one who had to be Miss Responsible, the one who had to be in charge, the one who had to drive herself to church because her mama didn't want to go that day. You know what I mean? Like, this is a release for me. When I'm on stage, I get to talk about how much I love God. I get to talk about how it was coming out to my family. I get to talk about my career, and I get to be all of Georgia. Like, that is a place where I can bring my whole self, take it or leave it. And as long as I'm having a good time, then I had the best time.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, before we go, there are a couple of housekeeping items that I like to do. One of which is and I feel like you've already done this, to be honest. The 7th grade telling your teacher to leave a husband is really that's all I needed. That's what I came for. But I feel like we all have these wonderful stories. And I like to call them, I can laugh about them now. These wonderful times in our lives where something's happened to us, whether that's medically, financially, spiritually, some sort of trauma maybe, that's happened to us that really was not a good look, wasn't really funny, kind of hurt at the time. But, now we can kind of put a spin on it. We can laugh about it. At the time, wasn't quite so funny. But today, being able to be big and grown and looking back on it, it feels like, you know what? I appreciate that experience so much more. So do you have one of those stories for me?
Yeah, I got plenty. I did share one earlier. That was the spiritual awakening and the psychotic break. I'm just accepting that that's what was going down. But I'd also share something I talk about in my comedy is, coming out to my parents. And I actually had my father, the second time I came out to him, came to my home and tried to cast the devil out of me. And this was just like maybe 2 years ago, not even 2 years. And that was something that was devastating to me then. And it still hurts a little bit now. But through comedy, I'm able to take control of that story and the narrative, what happened to me, and make people laugh with it, because other people who might be in the audience when I'm performing, they also have these coming out stories where their parents were not so accepting. Me and my father, he's apologized. We are working on our relationship, but that's something that I couldn't laugh in. I could not, I was numb. I could not believe that my father was using my holy oil to cast the devil out of me in my house. And now it's something where I can talk about it, I can laugh about it, and through that, I can help free some other people.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. Like, I feel like we go through some of these circumstances in solitude, or feel like no one understands. And what we realize that in telling these stories, how similar we all are, and how we are going through some of the same things. Maybe my daddy ain't coming over and sprinkling holy oil on me. However, there have been times when I've been confronted by someone that really just didn't understand where I was coming from and just didn't really value the experience that I was going through. So I get it. And I'm so glad that you could tell me that story. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. So before we go, let's chat about some of the things that you have in the works. What's next for Georgia?
I am losing it. Okay. I have set a date to tape a comedy special because now I think I'm a real comedian.
What?
So I'm going to do it. And I struggled with the why and the where does it go and what do I do with it? And I have people around me who said, Georgia, it's enough that you want to do it for you. So that's something that I'm working on right now. I also, thank you. Also just launched the 4th season of the Purpose Producer podcast. And I remember when that was just on the vision board. I remember when that was just a New Year's resolution. And I launched the show in 2019. And now I'm on season 4 in 2023. And this season, I'm spotlighting Black boy joy. I'm talking to Black men of all different ages about how they define joy, how they cultivate joy, and how they spread joy. And that is just, it's such a blessing to see a Black man smile.
I love that. Oh, that makes me so happy. And, you know, I remember what I was going to say in regards to Oprah, in one of the things that you said earlier, about doing things scared. And I tell myself this a lot too, because there's never a time that I've gone on television and I haven't been scared. I'm scared every single time. And I'm sure, you know this, and you know this just as a comedian, as someone who's kind of has transitioned from being behind the scenes to kind of right front and center. We do things scared. And that's one of the things that I learned from Oprah. That was one of I think the greatest gems from her, is that there was an interview where she said that every time those doors would open and she would come out and she was doing her show, every single time she was nervous, but she did it anyway. And that's got to be the thing that we take away, from today, is like, it doesn't matter what it is you set out to do. It doesn't matter what you're doing today. It doesn't matter what your goal is for later. And even with this podcast, for me, like, I'm nervous because I don't like the equipment and all the things, and I'm trying to make it right and all of this, but like, it's okay to be nervous, but just keep going anyway. Just do it anyway. Just get through it. It's okay to be nervous and do it anyway.
Amen.
Amen and amen. So where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere. But first and foremost at georgiadawkins.com. Come on, visit me. I need those clicks. Also, you can visit me on social media at Georgia Dawkins on all platforms, or at The Purpose Producer. So you can expect exclusive comedy clips, as well as clips from my show, interviews, and so much more. So thank you so much for having me.
YouTube too. You've got a great YouTube platform. I love how you are reutilising and repurposing some of those clips from the pod onto your YouTube. Georgia, I stand.
Thank you, sis. Thank you so much for believing in me from day one when I first moved to Atlanta, and I called you.
Oh, and we didn't even tell the story of how we went. Okay, so Georgia, I feel like you called me for said show, right? To just come in and like do a segment. And so we had been talking, I think via text, maybe email. We had just, had a few conversations, whatever. And then, here comes the weekend, hanging out with my family, going over to a friend's house. Her mom had made a whole bunch of food. And so we were going over there. And this friend says, hey, there's somebody I want you to meet. Let me connect you with this person. I've been telling her about you. I really want you to meet her. And lo and behold, it's Georgia. We have been having this whole conversation for like days leading up to it. And then she ends up being the mutual friend at the function. And from then on, like, it's just, I've just been cheering in your corner. I think you're amazing. I think, I just can't wait to see what the world has for you, because the world is absolutely yours, Georgia. Thank you so much for being a guest on Intimate Details with Dr. Tiff. We really appreciate it.
I'm always here for you. Whatever you need, I'm in your corner as well. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate it. And I receive it and I believe it. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the pod today. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.